Parlays on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network and also streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. All your favorite social media platforms, we're there for you because it's a great time to win some money, and we're here to help you do it. Right now on today's show, we're talking a whole lot of basketball, starting with college basketball. Conference tournaments are right around the corner, so a lot of these teams are really hoping to peak at the right time. Not only for their conference tournaments, but also, of course, for the NCAA tournament, March Madness, because it is March, and March Madness and Bracket Central is right around the corner. We've got several games that have big implications when it comes to those conference matchups. Let's see, Villanova, Georgetown, a big one in the Big East, and Louisville, Virginia. Those two teams still have a chance to clinch a part of the ACC regular season title with some different scenarios. I think it's a little harder for Virginia to do so as opposed to Louisville. I believe Louisville has the best conference record as of now. Virginia, we'll talk about their game. I believe the total on that one is something outrageous. It's like 111. And I don't know if you've watched Virginia this year, but they've really slowed down the tempo in all their games. It's like Craig has said earlier, the first one to 50 wins. I mean, it's slow basketball, almost the exact opposite of some of the NBA games we're talking, because the totals on those ones, defense has been scarce in the NBA this year. The total on one of these, I believe, is 240 something. It's something crazy. Oh, the Hawks and the Wizards, 245.5. That's wild. Yeah, the Hawks aren't playing any defense at all. They do like to score. Trae Young will drop some buckets on people. But yeah, we've got NBA Rapidfire for our NBA segment. We've got college basketball Big Saturday. But first, we're starting with college basketball Friday with Craig Trapp. Georgia Tech, Clemson, Wake Forest, NC State, my team, wearing the red for the pack, and VCU at Davidson. So college hoops, a whole lot to get to on today's show, starting right after the break on Picks and Parlays. Welcome back to Picks and Parlays on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network. Also streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, all of your favorite social media platforms. I am your host, Chelsa Messinger. You can find me on Twitter at Chelsa Messinger if you want to drop me a line, a pick, or a parlay, something good, a winner, preferably. Speaking of winners, we've got a whole lot of college basketball to talk, and we've got Craig Trapp joining us to dive in to some college hoops. I see we're matching. We've got the red, black, and white going on. I like it.
Big time, Chelsea. We last few games here for everybody before we start tournaments that we're going to be talking about on Friday, and some of the conference tournaments already even started today and yesterday. So exciting time of the year. The madness has begun, and I think we got some winners for you today.
All right, well, let's dive in. Starting with the ACC, Georgia Tech, Clemson, Clemson, I have them at -4.5. The total is 130 and a hook. The big story with Georgia Tech is they will not play in the ACC tournament. They're serving a postseason ban, so this is it for them. They won their last meeting at home, 68-59, as 2.5-point favorites. For a team that isn't playing for anything, you know what? They're riding a 3-game win streak. Last game they beat Pitt on senior night, so they are playing with some heart despite that postseason ban. What are we thinking on this one?
Well, this team, these two just played on February 25th with Georgia Tech winning pretty handily, 68-59 at Georgia Tech. But it's been a different story for both these teams on the road and at home. Basically, every team in college basketball this year, it seems like nobody can win on the road. Georgia Tech, all those 3 wins were at home. And they beat Pitt, Miami, and this Clemson team. Before that on the road, they did have a win at Wake Forest. So Wake Forest isn't that great. So I just think you're going to have reversal, a fortune here. I think Clemson's one of those teams that's on the bubble trying to get in. I think they have to have this win here. I like Clemson -4. The last 2 times Clemson's been at home, who did they beat? Florida State in a big upset last weekend, and the time before that. How about Louisville? The best 2 teams in the conference. This Clemson team has beat them the last 2 home games. I think they'll have no trouble covering that 4 points against a Georgia Tech team that, yes, has been good at home, but has struggled on the road. I think Clemson gets it done for us bettors here at -4.
Right. As of note, Georgia Tech has also beaten Louisville. That's kind of the story of the ACC this season. It seems like anybody can almost beat anybody. So it's kind of a toss-up because Clemson, you're right, beat a very good Florida State team, and they beat Louisville. But Georgia Tech, they beat a Carolina team that's definitely down but still talented, and they swept NC State. No comment on that one.
Ouch.
And that's our next. Don't get me started. For those of you who do not know, I went to NC State, and that's our next game on the docket. NC State hosting Wake Forest. The Pack is favored in this one, -7.5. Total is 152.5. NC State, one of those teams that does not perform when they need to or when people expect them to. They'll go out and beat Duke by 22, and then they'll turn around and get beat by 25 when they're supposed to play them close. And I'm not making that up. In their last 4 games is a favorite. They've only covered once, and they even lost when they were favored in one of those. So 1-5 against the spread in their last 6. But I will stop being so negative about NC State. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, rest assured, they're going to win this one, which that's in the ACC this year. We've just seen upsets galore, well, in college basketball in general. But I do think NC State wins. I just think it's too many points. I just think this Wake Forest team isn't as bad as they've been in years past. Remember Wake Forest, of course, they also beat Duke in overtime. They beat Notre Dame 2 of their last 3. They lost at North Carolina, but that game was closer than the final 10 points. They almost covered the 8-point spread there. I think this NC State team maybe a little demoralized because they played with Duke at Duke this past week, the whole game, and then they just kind of let it slip away with like the last 10 minutes. And I think that can kind of have a hangover effect, especially when you're not getting enough to play one of the perennial powers in the ACC like Wake Forest. So I think NC State kind of sleepwalks through the first half, lets Wake Forest stay in it. They do get a little breathing room in the second half. I just don't think it's enough to cover this big spread. So let's take Wake Forest +7.5 as Coach Manning gets the money for us underdog bettors here.
Right. I think that's the story of NC State is they play down to their competition as well sometimes. They didn't cover against Pitt that last game against Duke. They were with them in the first half, but then closing out the first half, a disaster. It was a turnover fiesta, and it's just hard to watch and even harder to bet on them. But let's move on to VCU and Davidson. Davidson favored in this one, -3.5. Total is 135. VCU 18-12 on the season, 10-20 against the spread. Davidson 15-14 overall, 12-17 against the number. 2 teams that haven't been covering a whole lot. Who do we like?
Well, not only is these teams not been covering, they haven't been winning. I mean, this VCU team has lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of the last 8, no, 6 of the last 7 they've lost. Only game was a 24-point win at George Washington. Davidson hasn't been a whole lot better. They've lost 3 of their last 5. And then you see this line at 3.5. So it's definitely a suspect line for me because I would expect Davidson. They're the hotter of the two, which is saying something when that team has lost 2 games. But those games are on the road. So you would expect it. I would expect it when I pulled this up to say Davidson 5-6 points. And I would have probably liked Davidson, but when you get this line, like it's a sucker line. It's 3.5. You're like, oh, Davidson is playing a little better. They're returning home. They'll get the win, and they might get the win. But I just don't think they're going to cover more than that. The 3-pointer here. So I'm going to take VCU plus 3.5, and what I think is going to be a dogfight. I just think it's going to be a really close game. VCU's desperate. They have to get a win here. I mean, it's hard to imagine a team that's 18-12, but it's lost 6 of their last 7 games. But that's the case for this VCU team. I mean, really struggling, but I think they pull it together at least to get the cover here, in a pretty good matchup here in the A10.
You kind of mentioned 3.5 being almost a sucker line. I think because the numbers, it like you mentioned, it just seems like Davidson's the play. Davidson 10-1 at home, 8-3 against the number at home, despite having a bit of a disappointing season. And VCU, on the other hand, 0-7 as a dog, 3-7 against the spread away. So
yeah, like I said, when you see those numbers, I just saw the raw numbers before the lines come out because I'm using handicapping before the lines come out, and I was like, oh, this is going to be 5 or 6, and maybe I'll take Davidson. And when the line comes out at 3.5, it's like, oh, what do the odds makers know that I don't know here? And that's when you start to creep back. I mean, especially this year, we've seen it. It's been more as the road favorites, as these big road favorites, ranked road favorites have been terrible in that 2 to 3, 3.5 point range, but I think it still stands to reason that odds makers know something here. Let's go with Vegas here, VCU plus 3.5.
So you kind of mentioned that if it was lower, if it moves to 3, would you still stick with VCU?
Yeah, the closer it gets to a pick 'em, the more I would like VCU because probably somebody knows something. Usually it would be sharp money at that point moving that line. It would be the big bettors, not the small bettors. And
Right.
especially when you look at the raw numbers. I mean, Davidson, they've been great at home. Their last 2 losses, they were on the road. And VCU has been terrible as an underdog. So why isn't this line 5 or 6? When that happens, you have to really, really look to kind of go counterintuitive, the whole Joe Duffy angle. And that's where we're going on this one.
Were there any other lines this week that stuck out to you as being suspect?
Like I said, most of the time this year, it's been the heavy ranked road favorites. Those teams in that 1 to 3.5 point range, I mean, they are death this year. It seems like they've won or they've lost like 80% of those, and not only lost, but lost outright. And, that's been the case in college basketball. It's been the year of the upset. And I think that's going to carry over. We're going to see that in the tournament a lot. I think it's going to be just wild for the next 2 to 3 weeks here in college basketball.
Well, if you can't win on the road, it's going to be probably tough to win even at a neutral site, I would assume. Obviously, it's not the road, but some of these teams will have some hostile environments to play in. I guess I think a lot of it's just because college basketball this year it's so bunched up. It's not far and away number 1, number 2 teams. Even though I think Kansas looks pretty good right now.
It's the ranked teams. All the ranked teams are inexperienced. There's a lot of inexperienced guard play out there. So those teams you're going to have inexperience. You're going to have growing pains, and hopefully some of those freshmen and sophomores that are getting playing time will grow up and will play well in the tournaments. But if not, watch out, get on the underdogs, and watch your bankrolls grow. I have a feeling this March Madness.
All right, that wraps up our first segment. Thank you, Craig. We're back after the break with more college basketball on Picks and Parlays. Back on Picks and Parlays on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network, also streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. I am your host, Chelsa Messinger. You can find me on Twitter at Chelsa Messinger is my handle. It's a great day to win some money, and we're here to help you do it. Continuing on with our college basketball picks. We've got Chip Chirimbes joining us to talk even more college hoops. Hello, Chip.
How you doing, Chelsea? It's good to see you're healthy, and you got by the big storm in Nashville. That nastiness.
Oh man, yeah, the tornado here in Nashville was absolutely wild. We were about a mile away from most of the destruction, and I didn't even take it seriously. It was in the middle of the night, so I was sleeping, and I was like, "Oh, it's just a thunderstorm." So very lucky that
1 mile is too close for me
happen.
to tell you that.
For sure,
1 mile is way too close, for sure.
Between that and the coronavirus, scary times.
Stop drinking.
So let's distract ourselves with some college basketball. Let's start today with Villanova and Georgetown. Villanova favored -3 on the road in this one. Total is 147. Nova coming off that big road win over number 8 Seton Hall, 79-77. Despite missing 7 free throws in the final minute, they managed to hang on and win. Georgetown, meanwhile, 15-15 on the year, 5-12 in the conference. Not the best record in conference. Who do we like in this matchup?
Well, I can't like Georgetown without any question. It's one of the worst offensive teams in the country, Chelsea. They're ranked 290th, averaging under 74 points a game. Villanova's been so spotty this year. A big win over Seton Hall last time out. But, I'd have to take Villanova here. They've won 5 of the last 6 meetings, covering all five of the 6. But this line that bothers me is, like Craig had said earlier, looks like a real sucker's bet to take Villanova here because this Georgetown team has lost 5 in a row. They're one of the worst shooting teams in the country. As a matter of fact, doesn't it seem like every year Georgetown is one of the worst shooting teams in the country? They seem to get the same player. No more David Wingates or Patrick Ewing's there. Villanova's finally healthy, at 27-4. They're really putting it together right now of late. They were 8-point favorites the first time they played Georgetown at home, and they covered. I think Villanova's just starting to get it together. I would take the Wildcats before I take the Hoyas, but I am apprehensive about that number because of what Greg had pointed out previously.
Right. To Georgetown's credit, they are missing 2 of their top scorers. Mac McClung has been out. Omer Yurtseven, an NC State transfer. Both didn't play in their last game. So they do have an excuse, but overall not a great season from Georgetown. So it's concerning to see that Villanova is only -3 in this one, especially since they've been so hot as of late.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about. And you know what? The other thought is if you can't play at NC State, how are you going to play at Georgetown? Sorry.
Well, I think he's hurt, so that's why he's not playing.
All right.
But so are you taking Villanova in this one?
I would take Villanova. I would. I don't think Georgetown is good enough to overcome a bad number. I really don't. And if they win, I kick myself in the butt and say, "See, you knew it." But I'll take the Wildcats here.
All right, moving on to Baylor and West Virginia. Speaking of numbers that look a little fishy, Baylor -1 at a West Virginia team that's 20-10. They're very turnover prone. West Virginia is, and Baylor is one of those teams that really caught on good defense. The total in this one I didn't mention is 129. Baylor's coming off a win over Texas Tech. They did not cover. That was a really close game. And then they lost to TCU before that. So initial thoughts on this fishy number in this matchup.
Definitely. And, West Virginia doesn't have the strongest of teams. Huggins has had a better product previously, but they are 15-2 at home. And that's probably why this number is so meager. Number 4, Baylor, they had such a great run. But once you lose the edge there, Chelsea, something happens. They've only covered 1 of the last 4. They have a 70-59 win over West Virginia at home as a 5-point favorite. This 129 is a really low number. And you know why? Because Huggins preaches defense. We know that. They're 20th in the country, allowing only 62.4 points a game are the Mountaineers. But guess what? The Baylor Bears are even better on defense, Chelsea. They are ranked 6th in the country, allowing only 59.6 points. I think this game is going to go under. I think Huggins is going to have his team geared up to play a real hard-nosed, tough defense at home. The Baylor offense seems to have bogged down a little bit of late, and they do play great defense, 6th in the nation. I think this game's destined to go under the total. I really do. And I don't think it's going to be, I think it's going to go under by a large margin.
You're not leaning to any side? You like the total?
Well, I could possibly, I like this Baylor team so much, and I just don't think the Mountaineers have the type of strength they've had in the past. But this is a game where the line really is an indicator for me. If I had to take a side right now, I'd probably take the Mountaineers and take West Virginia. 15-2 at home, straight up. They don't have to lay anything, and that would be the side. But I think the under is a stronger play.
All right, let's head over to the ACC, where Louisville and Virginia are going at it. Louisville -1 on the road here. Total is 111. That's right. The total is 111.
Yes.
That's a very low total, but for good reason. Virginia, they have a really slow tempo. They slow the game down so much that their past 2 games, 46-44, a win over Miami, and 52-50, a win over Duke. Those are very low-scoring games, but Virginia seems to be peaking at the right time. They've won 6 of their last 7, maybe. I can't read my writing, but they've been hot lately.
They won 6.
Louisville. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I was just saying they've won 7 in a row.
7 in a row. That's what it says.
Yes.
But point being is they're peaking at the right time. Louisville, however, one of the best teams in the ACC, 15-4 in conference play, probably why they're favored in this one. So what are we leaning, or what's the play?
Well, Louisville's the number 10 ranked team in the country, and Virginia has lost any kind of ranking, looking to sneak in at number 25, I think, this week. 14-3 at home are the Cavaliers. We said a 7-game winning streak. We both acknowledge that. Offensively, West Virginia is, look at this. They're 351st in the country, averaging 57 points a game. Chelsea, the reason why they play such a slow down game and such a great defense is because they can't throw the ball in the ocean. This team is terrible. They cannot score offensively. We've seen it time and again, and this is why they play great defense. Number 1 in the country defensively, partly from holding the ball control. 52.3 points per game they're giving up. And Louisville's no slouch either, only giving up 63.9. Louisville's covered 3 of the last 4, and including a 6.5-point favorite. They won by 7 against this team earlier this year. Louisville 1-point favorite here. I won't be surprised if Virginia does it again, but this is another game, Chelsea, where the defenses are just going to be they're going to take over in this game. I don't see either of the teams running up any long streaks, any long scoring binges. I see this is another game that stays under the total. Two of the best defensive teams going head to head, just like that game between Baylor and West Virginia. They're defensive oriented teams, and I see Virginia and Louisville staying under the total. As far as like having a side, Chelsea, Virginia's so hot. I mean, Louisville's got the conference locked up virtually, I believe. And so maybe their incentive or motive isn't quite there. And remember, there's still the conference tournament to come. But I think the play is the under.
All right, next up, we are staying in the ACC with UNC and Duke. North Carolina not having the season that any of the Tar Heels fans had hoped for. However, they're riding a 3-game win streak, and they look like they're playing their best basketball of the season. They do have nothing to lose, it seems like, and they definitely can play spoiler for number 12 Duke at -15, total at 151. We kind of talked before the show how that number might move, but right now that looks like a lot of points to give a UNC team. This is still a rivalry game, and UNC plays Duke pretty close. The last time they played, they should have won that game, but they lost in overtime. So how are we feeling about this UNC-Duke matchup?
Well, not only have they played them tough last time out, they've covered the last 5 meetings. I'm talking about the Tar Heels, of course. 13-17 on the year. Chelsea, they had that 7-game losing streak when they were 10-10. They got Cole Anthony back. Now they've won the last 3 in a row, though they had lost a number of games when he did return. Duke is 24-6, and they're still looking for a number 1 seed, believe it or not. I think they have a shot at it. number 8 or 9 in the country right now, because these conference tournaments, when they play them, Chelsea, the conference like the ACC is going to get the most weight put on it when these teams evolve out of the tournament. If Duke wins the tournament, to me, they're definitely going to be a number 1 seed. Third in the nation in scoring, 82.3 points a game. They have lost 2 of the last 3 and only covered 3 of the last 9. So now I ask you, Chelsea, why would they open 15-point favorites when they had to go overtime to beat this team? And like you said, they had no business winning that game. They were down 11, I believe, with a minute and a half to go, and somehow miraculously tied the game. North Carolina just didn't play well at the end down the stretch. They didn't handle the ball well, and Duke overcame it because they have the experience and the coaching. Very young, inexperienced Tar Heel team. They know they're not going anywhere. I think they may be psyched emotionally to play their big rivals here, to play the Blue Devils. But I expect Duke to take over in the second half and just run away from them. I'll lay the points with Duke, and I don't care where it is, because if they win by 20, you can be laying 10 or 15. It's not going to make a difference.
I might go against you on that one. Just
well,
because 15 is a lot of points,
be anything
and
unusual.
Carolina's got nothing to lose.
I understand. They're going to have a long bus ride home.
All right. Well, that wraps up our college basketball segment. Thanks, Chip, for joining us.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. Have a great weekend.
All right. After the break on Picks and Parlays, we are talking NBA. We've got NBA Rapid Fire firing off right after the break. Stick with us. Welcome back to Picks and Parlays on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network, and also streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. I'm your host, Chelsa Messinger. You can find me on Twitter at Chelsa Messinger if you want to drop me a line or a comment or a nice little parlay. I'm all ears, or I guess if you're typing it, I'm all eyes. And if you have any other sports betting needs that we haven't covered, we're online at picksandparlays.net. We've got you covered with just about everything sports betting. Right now, we're diving into another segment of basketball. This time, it's NBA Rapid Fire, where we cover several games, and we hope to pick some winners. Hopefully, picking some winners are Craig Trapp and Tony T. Hello, gentlemen.
How we doing, Chelsea?
All right, let's dive right in because we've got a good one to start. The Bucks and the Lakers. This one's a pick'em. Lakers at home in this one. The total is sitting around 227.5. The Bucks, the Beasts in the East, 53-9, 36-26 against the number. The Lakers, 47-13, 33-26-1 against the spread, 22-7 at home, and 4-1 against the spread in their last 5. Let's start with you, Craig. How are we leaning?
Well, when you look at this game, it's motivation for me. You know, who wants it more? Because I think these teams are pretty evenly matched. And the Lakers, of course, they see their, rival Clippers really turning it on right now, so they don't want to be outdone by them. But I think this is about Giannis and the Bucks. You know, the Bucks, ever since that early exit last year after having the best record in the East last year, Giannis has been, and he was the MVP, of course. He wants to win the MVP this year and get to the finals. And I think he proves that in this game. I think he plays like a man possessed. I think Milwaukee Bucks win out right here. And I also think the over here is a pretty easy play. In fact, it might be my better play. 227.5. It's up a point already. I think this one probably ends up close to 230, and I still like the over, as I think both these teams will score in bunches. But I do think the Milwaukee Bucks are the more motivated team, and I think they do win this game.
Speaking of motivated, it seems like LeBron James, when he's playing against other superstars, he wants to prove something. He tags all his pictures on Instagram with hashtag washed king, because I think somebody called him that once and he's ridden with it. So we saw it with the Pelicans. He's really trying to put a show on against Zion. So I'm wondering if he does it here. Tony T, I know you have a West Coast bias almost since you're out in LA. You like the Lakers here?
Yeah. Yeah. Before, can we get Craig to clarify his pick? Which side are you on this one? I just wanted to get it clear on.
I like the Bucks and the over.
All right. Bucks and the over. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that. Hey, I'm going to be on the Lakers in this one. And I'm going to tell you why here. If you look at the Bucks here, they have not been sharp shooting the basketball over their past 5 games. It's 43% shooting, 31% from 3. And look at their scheduling. Now, a lot of times these Midwest teams, they get caught up in these one-game homestands, which I completely hate. We saw that happen to Oklahoma City last year, and that's one of the reasons of their demise in the playoffs and down the stretch. They were an exhausted team. But when you look at Milwaukee's schedule, they played one-game homestands 3 times since the All-Star break. What followed were 2 games on the road and now a 3-game road trip out west. So body-wise, this is going to feel like their 9th straight road game for Milwaukee, because they've had to travel to each destination. When you play these one-game homestands, it has, as we talked about, it's not going to feel, it's not going to, you're not going to have the best effort here from Milwaukee. They're not going to be at their best. So for that reason, for the scheduling purpose, I like the Lakers, and you see it in the shooting for Milwaukee.
Yeah, we hope that they're wiping down all of the armrests on the plane and not getting coronavirus from traveling so much. I guess they probably fly private, I would assume, but still.
Yeah.
Gotta stay healthy. Next up, let's go to the Magic and the Timberwolves. The Magic favored in this one, -2. Total is 235. The Magic are 27-35 on the year, 28-32-2 against the number. The Timberwolves are 19-42. Yes, not one of the better teams in the NBA, but 22-37-2 against the number. A little better, but not a great cover team either. Craig, who do we like in this one?
Yeah, not a great cover team. 7-22-1 against the spread at home. I mean, I think, yeah. I mean, and a lot of these are as a big underdog or as an underdog. So it's like they don't even need to win. They just need to cover. I mean, terrible. I just think Orlando's a play here. I've faded this Minnesota team at home so many times this year to such good success. It's hard to get off of it. And I think I'm not going to get off of that winning train tonight. Let's take the Orlando. Much more talented, much more consistent, 17-13-1 against the spread at home. So let's take Orlando Magic -2. I'm sorry, that was on the road, that against spread record. But I think you lay the 2 on the road with Orlando Magic tonight.
Tony T, you fading or you agree with Craig?
Oh, you know where I'm going here? I'm going over the total in this one. I'm going to continue to ride this Orlando over train here. They played to over at 9 straight as they've seen their offensive production increase in that span. Everyone thinks Orlando isn't a very good offensive team. They haven't been for most of the season, but lately they've been kicking up the scoring a little bit more, playing a little bit fast tempo. You look at their past 5 games, 48% shooting, 37% from 3. But again, what happens when you play fast and you're not a very good team? Well, you're not going to play defense. That's what's happening in past 5 games in that span. 50% shooting, they're allowing 43% from beyond the arc. The note here with Minnesota, no Karl Anthony Towns in the middle. There's no rim defender for Minnesota. We're seeing that the Timberwolves playing horribly defensively, allowing 50% shooting over their past 5 games. And of course, going to continue this over train here with Orlando over 234.5 with their dancing partner Minnesota.
Well, and the last time they played, the score was 136-125, which I can almost guarantee that was an over. Let's move on to the Heat and the Pelicans. The Pelicans are favored in this one, -1.5 at home. Total is 235.5. Heat, one of those teams that have been pretty good this year, 40-22 on the year, 31-29-2 against the number. Pelicans 26-36, 31-29-2 against the spread. I know the Zion story is what everybody wants to talk about with the Pelicans, but Lonzo Ball has been really good lately. Back-to-back games with 7 3-pointers. Meanwhile, the Heat have a pretty good three-point shooter of their own in Duncan Robinson, who just made 9 threes in the last game. So might see some hot shooting in this one. Craig, where are we leaning?
Anytime I see a New Orleans game in the 230s instead of 240s, I'm leaning to the over. And I also think the side at New Orleans -1, they just -1.5. I just think New Orleans, since Zion came back, has just played so motivated and so inspired. And, I think that's what happens with these great young players is that everybody else picks their game up. Like you said, Ball is playing out of his mind right now because he has no pressure. All he has to do is throw it up to Zion. Good things usually happen when you get the ball to Zion, especially out in the open or up by the rim. I think New Orleans -1.5. I think the stronger play is the over 235.5. As New Orleans, I think, goes for 130 here by themselves and pushes us way over the total.
Well, and Lonzo Ball's also corrected his shot, so I think that's helped a lot as well. Tony T, who do we like, or what's the play?
Yeah, I like New Orleans here as well, -1.5. The one thing to note here, it's really tough to back Miami on the road. When you go back and look at their road performances, they've lost 5 of their past 6 road games. Their only win coming to Golden State. Now, there is a drop-off for the Heat in their shooting and defending away from home. One thing to note here about the Pelicans, their third best three-point shooting team in the NBA at 37%. And Miami, they have failed to cover 6 of 7 on the road against teams with losing records at home. So they play down to the competition when they're on the road here. So I'll go ahead and take New Orleans in this one, -1.5. New Orleans has to start getting it together here. You got Damian Lillard's now healthy for Portland, so they're trying to get in that playoff spot for the 8th seed. It's important for New Orleans because you want Zion Williamson to have some sort of playoff experience when you make your push next season. So I think New Orleans, they got to push hard to close it out here. I'll take them in this spot against Miami, a team that I just can't trust right now on the road.
All right, next up, we've got the Hawks and the Wizards. The Wizards favored at home in this one, -3. Total is 245.5, and for good reason. Both these teams like to score a lot of points and not play a lick of defense. Trae Young for the Hawks scoring a ton, and the Wizards score a lot too. Craig, are you taking this total or you like a side?
Well, I do like the over total, even at 245.5. I thought it should probably be 249 or 250, and I still would probably lean to the over. But I think you have to take Washington -3. Since Bradley Beal didn't make the All-Star team, he really has turned it up an extra notch. He was already playing well this season, but since then he's been on fire, back-to-back 50-point games. I think Trae Young might have to get 50 tonight himself to keep up with this. I don't think that happens, but I like Washington and Bradley Beal. They're much more consistent, especially at home against the Atlanta team that's not good against the spread on the road, just 10-21 against the spread on the road. So let's take the Washington Wizards -3. If you want to take the over as well, I wouldn't talk you off of it.
All right, Tony T, what's the play for you?
Yeah, I'm going to be butting heads with Craig here. I'm going to take the Hawks at +3. I think it's a kind of a tough spot for the Wizards. They played their first home game after a 4-game road trip out west, only 1 day of rest. That really is not a good spot for teams with coming off a long road trip, especially those east to west type of trips. The Hawks have won and covered 4 of their past 6. And one thing to note here, the Hawks are rested. They have 3 days off. With 3 days off, the Hawks have covered 5 of 6. Believe it or not, they've allowed 11 fewer points in overall average. So somehow, some way, the only way the Hawks play defense is when you give them 3 days off. This will be the 3rd game in 4 nights for Washington. Remember, they closed out that West Coast road trip in a back-to-back, losing by 5 to Sacramento, 21 at Portland, and they allowed a combined 54% shooting. I just think the spot's bad for Washington. I'll take the Hawks here, the rest of the team at +3.
All right, next up, we've got the Thunder at the Knicks. Thunder favor in this one, -7. Total is 219. The Thunder on the year have been one of those teams, a really great cover team. The Knicks, not a great season, but we're just talking this game. And if they can cover that 7-point spread, despite all the drama that seems to surround them and Spike Lee and all of that noise. Craig, who do you like in this one?
Yeah, the Thunder have been a great cover team, but not as good recently. But I do think, you want to cure what ails you, you go play the Knicks. It doesn't matter, play them at home, play on the road, doesn't really matter. It's kind of funny that the Knicks, the game that their best win of the season, beat the Rockets at home, and that can't even be the headline. It has to be about the Spike Lee issue. So to me, I just think the Knicks are just a dumpster fire. Let's take lay all the points here with the Thunder, -7 on the road. I think they need to get right win, and they do that against a bad Knicks team.
Yeah, I don't know how the Knicks beat the Rockets. I remember, I think we live bet that game. We're like, oh, there's no way that the Rockets keep losing, but doubled down and lost. Tony T, circling back to this Thunder Knicks game. Who do you like?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Knicks +7. You know, when the Knicks out-rebounded the Rockets by over 30, there's a reason. You give a bad team too many possessions. But one thing to note here in this game, we talked about the Midwest teams late in the year playing these one-game homestands. That's what's happened to the Thunder. Their past 2 homestands have been 1 game. Again, they feel like road games. So this will feel like their 7th road game in a row because they'll be playing their 7th game in 7 different cities. And it's hard for Oklahoma City to play at their best. New York has covered 3 straight as their offense has shown improvement. Look in their past 5 games, hitting 50%, 36% from 3. They do have a winning spread record at home, do these Knicks. Everybody, and they played a little better with the coaching change. But one thing to note here, with all this travel for OKC, is they're not playing very good defense, allowing 48% shooting, 39% from 3. That is definitely showing some signs of fatigue, being on the road too much, especially with these one-game homestands, which are terrible for these Midwest teams this time of the year. I'm going to take the points here with the Knicks.
All right, and real quick, a little bonus. Blazers Suns. I have it as Blazers -1 point or -0.5 point. Anyone taking this game? Craig?
Yeah, I like the Blazers here, -1. Damian Lillard's back, so I think they have to start winning if they're going to hold on to that 8th spot or get into the 8th spot.
Tony, who you like?
Yeah, I'm with Craig there. I'll look at the Blazers here. One thing to note here for the Suns, Aiden out. He's a key rim defender for Portland. When one of their bigs is out, they play terrible defense. They fail to cover 8 of 10. Have the Suns take Portland in this one.
All right, that wraps up NBA Rapid Fire. Thank you both. We're back after the break on Picks and Parlays, wrapping up all of our picks from today's show. Welcome back to Picks and Parlays on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network and also streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. I am your host, Chelsa Messinger. You can find me on Twitter just about every day at Chelsa Messinger is my handle. If you want to drop me a line or a comment or a pick or a complaint, I'm open to just about anything. Right now, it's the portion of our show where we recap all of today's picks in case you weren't paying attention. Or if you're just now tuning in, we've got you covered for a whole weekend of sports betting on basketball, starting with college basketball on Friday. Craig Trapp gave us some Friday picks. Georgia Tech at Clemson, taking Clemson -4 in that one. Wake Forest at NC State, taking Wake at +7.5. VCU at Davidson 3.5. And then moving on to Saturday, some big picks from Chip Chirimbes. He gave us Nova at Georgetown, taking Nova in that one. Baylor at West Virginia. He likes the under, a lot of defense in that one. Louisville, Virginia, taking the under despite it being a total of 111. Virginia has played some really low-scoring games. That's why. North Carolina and Duke. He likes Duke laying all the points, no matter how much they have to lay. And then finally, NBA Rapid Fire picks. Craig Trapp. He really likes the Bucks and the Lakers game. He's taken the Bucks +1, even though I think that game has moved to a pick'em. Tony T gave us a whole lot of NBA picks. Magic Timberwolves taking the over 234.5. Heat at Pelicans, taking the Pelicans in that one. -1.5. Bucks Lakers. He likes the Lakers -1 at home. Hawks Wizards taking the Hawks +3, and Thunder Knicks taking the Knicks +7. And that's all of our college basketball picks. So you have a full weekend of sports betting ahead of you. Hopefully we pick some winners. And remember to have a good time betting all these games. We're here every weekday talking sports betting. And of course, you can head to our website, picksandparlays.net, for all of your sports betting needs. That's going to do it for our show today. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, bet, win, repeat. Picksandparlays.net.